Good evening, friends. Zach here, and I am excited to be doing the second round of Q&A with the acid math community. The first one went really well and wound up being an hour-long video that had about 1,000 views on it, and I shared that on my YouTube channel and got even more response from there. So this is an exciting opportunity for me to be able to vent out the large amount of information that I've accumulated in my study of plants in terms of both internet and book scouring and deriving information, as well as personal experience exploring different plants and meditative practice in conjunction with plants. So those of you that are just joining in now, I'm open to any questions about either specific plant teachers, whether they're the more common mind-altering plants, really more exotic ones. If there's any plants that you've heard about and you've always been curious about and you would like some information about, I am happy to discuss the majority of the popularized plants as well as the more exotic ones. I have some amount of experience with, more than likely, or at least some type of information. So a little bit of background. Sorry, this iPad is slipping. Oh, I got a question about ayahuasca. That is one that I do have experience with it, but not as much as many other plants, oddly enough, considering how popular it is now. Ayahuasca is extremely powerful. It is, for those of you not familiar, it is a conjunction of two different plants. Traditionally, it is Banisteriopsis caapi vine, used alongside Psychotria viridis leaves, but there's a number of different plants that are either used in conjunction or in place of one of those. So there's a number of different variations of ayahuasca. In my experience, it was extremely powerful in providing direct transportation to the divine realms that traditional shamans would call the spirit realm, and I can relate to that choice of wording. It was comparable to me to the smoked DMT experience, except the ayahuasca was in a way more clean because it was the onset comes on at a more smooth curve, and then the peak is more tangible, and then the decrease was also more reasonably paced compared to smoked DMT, which just comes on and then comes down. But I think the effect was fairly similar, and for me, all forms of DMT have yielded very profound connection and communication. I tend to get direct, not just revelation, but it's essentially like, feels like siphoning information from these spiritual realms when I use any type of tryptamines. Psilocybin as well, but DMT seems like this crystal clear kind of tryptamine experience compared to psilocybin, which has this murky kind of funhouse, very animalistic feeling. Next question. Ayahuasca by itself or prior to converting it to DMT? Well, if you're referring to, there's a little bit of nomenclature issue. Ayahuasca is a term that refers to the vine itself, the Banisteriopsis caapi vine, and I have only used the leaf of Banisteriopsis caapi by itself. I'm actually looking forward to, I'm working with some new sources right now in Peru to try to get some more vine, and I'm looking forward to doing a brew with just the vine, and that'll be really exciting to get to know that, because a lot of people do credit it as having its own entheogenic properties, as well as particularly healing and teaching. It's pretty interesting that the natives say that out of the two plants, the caapi and the chacruna, the caapi contains the MAOIs, harmaline, and the chacruna leaf contains the DMT. Most people in the popular psychedelic culture would consider the DMT being like the power of the experience, but the natives actually revere the vine as being the strength and the power of the experience, where the chacruna they refer to as the light. So it's as though the DMT illuminates this power and this healing essence that's inherent in the vine itself. So I am familiar with the practice with the vine, but I have not used that one by itself. Thank you very much, Josh, for the kind words and appreciation. Let me show you guys what I'm working with tonight here. I have got, it's kind of bubbly right now, but some hot cocoa made from organic raw cacao, and it's got maca and a bunch of superfoods. And cacao is a teacher plant. It's a rather humble one and not necessarily a psychedelic, but it's a very powerful meditative aid and something pretty fun to work with. Is it illegal to purchase in the USA? Anthony, if you're referring to ayahuasca, that's a somewhat double-sided question, because to purchase ayahuasca as ayahuasca would be illegal. To purchase ayahuasca for consumption would be illegal. However, the plants are able to be legally obtained if they are not purchased with the intention of consumption. So, yeah, it's one of these weird legal gray areas. Elias, can you speak a little bit about San Pedro, Echinopsis pachanoi? Yes, I would love to speak about San Pedro. Firstly, the traditional name for San Pedro is Wakuma or Huacuma. And from my understanding, it was not until the Spaniards came over to Central America that the name was adapted to be San Pedro. Wakuma was the native term of reverence. That's the spirit name for it, essentially. When the Christian invaders came over, they had to adjust the name, essentially, to make it reflect Christianity so that it wouldn't be ostracized against, basically. In my experience, sacred cacti have an extremely special place in my heart. They have taught me possibly more than any other plant. The cactus is the most particularly lucid of all the teachers I've worked with. It seems to provide lessons in a very clear way. There tends to be a lot less mental racing and confusion, little to no confusion. It seems to me as though cactus amplifies my connection to spirit. It's as though it's turning up the volume knob on my connection to spirit to the degree where on low-medium doses, the cactus amplifies connection to spirit to the degree where everything just becomes information. There's no more question-answer duality. Everything just becomes absolute information, and I can just tune in and meditate and receive all the guidance I need, whether that's guidance involving my own healing or where I need to go in life or anything like that. On the stronger doses, the volume knob to spirit gets turned up so high that the connection to spirit actually overlays the more common perception to the physical reality as we know it, and that's when things become extremely otherworldly and dreamy. But up until that point, Wakuma offers an extremely lucid and tangible experience compared to the more shifty and funhouse-like quality of some of the other entheogens. Let's see here. All right, Joseph's saying, could you elaborate on what you know or have experience with shamanism or shamanic voyaging? If you already got this question, don't sweat it. Also, love you. Enjoy your beverage. Thank you much. Yes, shamanic work is something I was called to at a pretty young age. I'm 28 now, and I first received a calling to practice this when I was probably 16 or 17, but I was a little bit too young then to really grasp or fully understand what it was. I just started feeling intuitively that there was something to be learned, and there was some quest to evolve myself. That's kind of the term that rang through my head. There was something that was calling out to me to really reach my full potential. And it began with a combination of both, for me, refining my life as well as working with plant teachers. At the time, when I first started practicing shamanism, it was like, 2005 or 2006. It was much less popularized in our culture. Since then, it's become a very almost trendy, kind of new agey thing for people to talk about shamanism, and I meet a whole lot of people that refer to themselves as shamans. I am not one to dwell on titles or any ego definition boundaries, essentially. So I don't consider myself a shaman, and if somebody else wants to consider themselves one, that's fine. I'm not going to discourage it, but I'm also not going to encourage it. To me, it's about the practice of developing connection to spirit. By working with plant teachers, we are able to develop allies. The plants are allies to help us to form communication with spirit. Spirit is, it's comparable, spirit is like a form of reality which is present everywhere. I want to compare it to like the idea of God, but I think in a sense God or Great Spirit is kind of like a larger web. spirit that we communicate with. You know, there might be a spirit of a plant, but spirit is something that is flowing everywhere. So the allies, plant teachers, can help us to form these communications with spirit, and the plant teachers can provide lessons to us. But ultimately, shamanism is about forming a direct line of communication between your being and spirit. And this is something that goes a lot far beyond just consuming plant teachers and psychedelics. And that's where there seems to be a lot of kind of confusion in the modern culture. There's a lot of people that think eating mushrooms, you know, makes you a shaman because you have like visions, but I think it's a little bit more than that. And in my experience, shamanism is what I consider to be a full-time job. I'm always in a direct communication with spirit, and I have to listen to that. And when I do not listen to that, I feel direct reverberations and will actually encounter sickness and dulling of my intellectual facilities, as well as emotional discord. So it's something that's a very powerful journey that also it yields profound results. I mean, whether it's shamanism or any form of spiritual development, which one dedicates to wholeheartedly, the rewards are pretty profound in the sense of being able to have guidance and know where to go, and also seeing the ripples that you put out into the world. The more that I tune in, the more that I follow the course of action that has been shown to me, the more that I find myself in beautiful places at beautiful times and having really profound interactions with people, which the people are very grateful for, and I myself feel a lot of enrichment from. Shamanism is something I could go into all day, but I'm going to move on a little bit more, and I'm happy to talk about it more at any occasion. Alexander, what are your thoughts on Salvia? I've reached some shamanistic states with it. And then, yes, pure cocoa, definitely amazing. Salvia is something that I used a long time ago, and I have not since. It has a very special place in my heart, and I do look forward to going back to it at some point. It's a very unique entheogen. For me, Salvia is the only thing that has ever produced consistent, what one would call psychologically to be tactile hallucinations. I can touch and interact with the visuals on Salvia. When I was young, I considered it essentially some kind of Alice in Wonderland other world. Since I've more come of age and practiced shamanism so long, I am not really sure exactly what to define the Salvia world as. It seems to be almost of another dimension in a way, where the more traditional entheogens, the cactus and the mushrooms, they seem to connect me with spirit, or like the spirit realm. Salvia, I mean, maybe it's another part of the geography of the spiritual realm, but it seems to be entirely of another dimension. I start to see, with Salvia, I start to see these dimensional folds almost every time I did it. After I would hit it, I would feel this change happen. You know, you feel the gravity and the weight and a lot of these physical sensations. But all of a sudden, I would notice in my surroundings something like, it's like a seam line that would run along. And it would almost strike me every time as, how did I not notice this before? And there would be these lines. And then as soon as I tune into it, I would see how there's like stacks of them. And a lot of times it resembles like something like almost like stadium seating. Like there's like a series of these rows that are all interconnected. But it's strange because they don't interfere with my perception of the rest of the room. It's as though I notice this like a zipper or a seam on reality. Then as soon as I tune into it, I can see a series of them. And then on strong Salvia experiences, these perceivable other dimensional grid lines start to, they become able to be interacted with, and I find myself climbing into this other dimension and into this empty space in the room, essentially. And I've gone so far as to venture out of body and meet entities and communicate with them and ask them questions. It's hard to remember a lot of the specifics. I was like 16, 17 at the time, but it's a really powerful plant. I definitely encourage anyone to be extremely respectful when approaching it. And with any plant, please be extremely respectful. But Salvia especially, it's so sad just to see that after I started working with it, it just got so popular so fast, and then you started seeing all those YouTube videos and, you know, people just smoking it and just laughing and, you know, doing crazy stuff. And I'm not saying anything's inherently right and inherently wrong, but I really feel intuitively like the plant has been disrespected. So if you're going to work with it, you know, please bring tidings of respect and honor, and try to maybe apologize for the culture's misuse of it if at all possible. All right, another one about Salvia, Wendy. I hope that answers a little bit. David, Psilocybin versus Mescaline. Both beautiful, both very powerful. Psilocybin to me is... Psilocybin seems to be a magic plant in a sense. It causes profound changes in evolution. Cactus, I think, can be used for magic, but cactus to me is inherently medicinal. When I consume cactus, it brings about very direct changes in my body every time. And as long as I'm approaching it with respect and with harmony, I seem to evolve, and it's almost, I want to say more linear with cactus. Whereas every time I work with it, it's going to bring about very specific changes. It's not that I could exactly predict it, but it seems to always go in a line in terms of helping me to heal, helping me to get in tune with spirit, and it just flows. Psilocybin is a lot different. It seems like it brings something different to the table each time, and with respect, and if approaching with intention, you can derive a lot of healing from it, but it seems to have this very other dimensional, like, with psilocybin, for me, I feel as though when I enter shamanic trance with psilocybin, I feel as though I'm like moving. I feel like a lot of physical movement, and then I find myself squirming out of my body and going into, it's like feels very physical, like I'm swimming and crawling. Then I get out of my body and go into these other realms, and it feels very much like a journey in a sense, where mescaline to me feels as though my connection to spirit amplifies stronger and stronger, and then all of a sudden it feels like I'm just absolutely interconnected into these divine realms, but it's a lot more stable feeling. I feel rooted, I'm here, I'm connected, I'm safe. Mushrooms have this very dreamy, like lost in another world kind of quality. So I think they each have their own application, and they're both very powerful medicines. But for me, when somebody asked me what plant would be good to work with for approaching with the intention to grow spiritually and to evolve and heal, I definitely suggest cactus as a great starter if somebody is intending to go and meditate with it. I definitely agree, Alexander. Intention is particularly important with Salvia. Josh, talking about experimenting with peyote and DMT and such. I definitely encourage you to look around. I don't suggest, finding, like street dealers and things like that. But I know the Native American church, there's a lot of different sectors of that, and you can probably find an outlet to be able to work with peyote in a ceremonial context, and that might be very beneficial for you. So best of luck with that. Nicotine, alcohol, marijuana. Joseph, very good questions there. I see that each plant has a very profound medicinal quality. I've just used this phrase the other day. I was talking about datura, or Brugmansia and anticholinergics. That this is a phrase that's kind of been running through my head for a while, and I feel like I finally created a succinct version of expressing it. All medicines can be poison if, all right, hold on, let me say it the other way around. Anything that's considered a poison has a medicinal application if you use it with alchemical precision. Anything that is considered a medicine can be poisonous if used haphazardly. So medicines and poison are essentially one and the same thing. They're just causing profound effects on our body. Just that poisonous things, we really need to know how to use them. And then things that are generally considered medicinal, they're a little bit more safe. But you still have to use it properly, essentially. So on that note, tobacco, to me, is one of my allies. However, and this is the important part, I think, I use it extremely infrequently. The last time I used tobacco, probably 2 or 3 months ago. Before then, 2 or 3 months before, I've gone periods of doing it once a day. I've gone periods of doing it twice a month, once a month. I switch it up. I just listen to when it calls to me. Tobacco is extremely powerful if used in ritual and with intention. However, it's a poison. It is poisonous. Nicotine is a poison. So you don't want to just be consuming poison. It would not be smart to make that as an ally. In my personal opinion, it would not be smart to make an allyship with tobacco with the intention to use it with any regularity. It is a poison, and it's going to cause detriment. And it's the same kind of situation as alcohol, and also datura and the anticholinergics. They're poisons. You have to know how to use them with absolute alchemical precision, have to approach with intention, and you have to use it very sparingly, or else you can cause physical harm and death. Alcohol, I don't resonate with at all. I don't consume any alcohol. It really throws me off kilter. breaks my lucidity, and the negative effects last a lot longer than the kind of wiggly fun effects. I'm a huge plant enthusiast. I would choose any of the kind of more goofy plants over alcohol anytime. I'm not going to say I'll never do it again, but I've had alcohol a handful of times, like 2 or 3 times in the past decade. So, you know, to each their own. But to me, alcohol does not have application in shamanistic work. I'm sure there's no black and white. I'm sure that somebody could use it for trance. The last time I did drink, I did go outside and was meditating by the trees, and I felt a connection to spirit, and that was cool. You know, I definitely felt like something was slightly amplified, but I wouldn't... It didn't provide anything that other plants don't provide, and alcohol's after effects are just, it creates this kind of inability to... I do a lot of like qigong and kind of energy movement work, and alcohol, it almost makes like energy like soap. And it's like, I can't like hold on to it. That kind of explains why people get wobbly when they're drunk. But this effects lasts a day, multiple days, 3, 4, 5 days. I mean, it's subtle, you know, after 3 or 4 days, but it's just not for me. Marijuana is kind of somewhere right in the middle of that spectrum, in my opinion. It's a powerful teacher. I was using it very regularly. I haven't used it in the past 2 years, but I will use it again in the future. Cannabis is something that I think can kind of go the way of being an intoxicant, or it can go the way of being a teacher, depending on how you use it. It, to me, provides a powerful sense of yin energy, flexibility. So cannabis, when used in meditation, allows me to step outside of the framework, the yang, the structure, and float into new thoughts. It has a long history of use in Hinduism and for mystical function, and that, you know, I think really speaks to the fact that obviously there's application to it. So I think it's a great plant, excuse me, but it's something that's also being really abused. I don't think, you know, when I smoked herb, I would smoke frequently, and that's not really respecting it. You know, I mean, I could find ways to justify it. Oh, it's medicinal. Oh, I'm meditating. Oh, this, you know what I mean? But overall, it was just a habit, and a habit is going to restrict freedom. Whether it's any habit is going to restrict your freedom. And for me, the shamanistic experience, a big part of that is staying receptive and open, and being free of habits as much as possible, so that I'm always in tune and capable of spontaneously flowing onto whatever I feel drawn to spiritually. If a person is very sensitive to some certain drug experiences, including marijuana, it would be a very intense experience in stronger psychedelics drugs, but would that affect me permanently to the point that it would change my perspective of life to worse? I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. The last name is Pontes. That is a really good question, and the first thing that comes to my mind, I was just having a discussion with this about this with my girlfriend just a few days ago. Everything changes your experience. Your mind. Your mind is changed every day. You wake up every day and you're a different person. You might not notice it all the time because you're not magnifying into your changes. What psychedelics do are amplifying your perception of your neurochemical changes, amplifying awareness of your neuropatterns, so you can see how they change. But every day they do change. So every psychedelic is going to change you for life, you know? Every day is going to change you for life, though. You're never the same 2 days in a row. So the more that you tune into that, and the more that you approach with intention and approach slowly. I always recommend anybody, any new plant, start slow. Whatever somebody says you should do, I'm going to do like a 1/4 of that or a 1/10 of that, you know? Tune in with the plant, listen to the plant, and then just take one step at a time. If the plant calls to you, if you feel resonant, then go, you know? If not, then don't. There's no direct answers that can be achieved in the outside world. In the spiritual alchemy series that I'm doing on YouTube, I have put a strong emphasis on the fact that all information, all answers are best suited to be drawn from a balance from input of the external information complemented with our own intuition. There's no absolute answer in the world, and our intuition is never absolutely perfect. But by balancing the two, we can make pretty informed decisions and really find what best suits us. So if on another note, though, Joe, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, sorry. Just because you do not resonate with marijuana, I would not relate that in any way to any connection that you might have with other plants. Marijuana tends to be a little bit more anxiety-inducing than a lot of psychedelics. Even in low doses, marijuana will provide a certain disorientation a lot of times, and that is not the case with a lot of psychedelic plants. Also, if you just look at the neurochemistry and pharmacology of how the different plants affect your brain, cannabis is markedly different than the more serotonergic psychedelics. So I would encourage you to still pursue and experiment in slow doses and feel it out from there, and you may very well find something that suits you really well. I have a couple of close friends that work with a lot of teacher plants and are really on a great path with developing their, in my opinion, it seems like they're on a great path of developing their spiritual connection, and they don't like cannabis at all. Doesn't do anything for them, disoriented, they don't feel good, not cool for them. So, yeah, it's not for everybody. Not every plant is for everyone. Some of them are a little bit more universally liked. Cactus seems to be like that. Cannabis is fairly universally liked, but a lot of people don't. So, it's no psychedelic or entheogen is one size fits all. Salvia does feel like another dimension for sure. Layers and layers, morphing and overlapping. Awesome way to describe it. Thank you, Josh. And sorry, some of these I skipped over where your people are being complimentary and things. I really appreciate your input, though, and I love you guys. Oh, shoot. Sorry, I just spilled my incense. Yes, the book Alice in Wonderland. Yes, another dimension. You gotta keep trying it. You can maneuver through and talk to the plants. They have their own language, and it seems the seam of reality. It's like dimensions, all the same, but slightly different. Definitely agree with that. I'm glad that you resonate. Josh, talking about ketamine. I have always been interested in that, but I'm a really conservative freak about what I put in my body. When I was younger, I did some experimentation with synthetics, but I'm pretty strict about only really allowing organic compounds. Somebody can argue, oh, everything's chemicals, everything, and I understand. But the point is that the earth produces certain alkaloid compounds and it doesn't produce other ones. Personally, I feel intuitively resonant with the idea of working with things that have been established in the biocircuit and created by plants. I'm not saying that it's the higher path or better than somebody that likes synthetics, but personally I don't really resonate with the idea of using synthetic compounds. Ketamine, though, I'm definitely pretty versed in, I'm kind of a drug nerd in general. I like reading about a lot of things. I think that ketamine would have definitely an application in terms of developing spirituality. However, I would recommend for more direct spiritual growth and development, more precision development, I would recommend somebody work with Amanita muscaria over ketamine or DXM or anything like that, because Amanita is also a dissociative. It's not really for everyone, just like dissociatives aren't for everyone either. But with the right intention, application, setting, you can definitely develop quite a bit through the use of dissociatives. They seem to all have this natural anti-anxiety and antidepressant quality, which is pretty fascinating. So they have quite a bit of function, I think, in the modern world. And in terms of accessing psychedelic states of mind, they provide a more out-of-body kind of trance experience compared to the more astral journeying, for lack of a better term, quality that the serotonergic psychedelics offer. Wendy saying you felt like you became the couch you were sitting on. I'm imagining you're talking about Salvia. I think part of that's the pharmacology. I believe that Salvia works on the kappa opioid receptors. I forget which one it is. It's one of the opioid receptors. So it's doing something to your body that causes a numbing almost. And I think something about that combined with the psychedelic mental effects creates this tendency for people to blend with objects. It's a pretty bizarre phenomenon, and I'm definitely familiar with that. Chew salvia leaves as opposed to burning them because the salvia goddess doesn't like fire. I have heard that, Michael. Definitely thank you for mentioning that. I've only chewed it once when I was younger, but I definitely liked the vibe of that quite a bit. I can understand that making sense, though, just chewing the leaves, slowly absorbing it. Yeah, the thing with chewing salvia versus eating it, in terms of the pharmacology, you're going to get a slow onset, you're going to peak, and then you're gonna come down. Where smoking it just it's on, then it's coming down. It's just chaotic, I think chewing anything is definitely more tangible and is going to be a little bit more usable. The wisdom from it's going to be more usable. my favorite tree showed me life as a tree is beautiful. Like you can witness all this time, but can hardly move. I saw thousands of years pass by. I became a branch and saw its life. Sounds Salvia-esque to me. I haven't had the whole... I've had time melt down to where it felt like I was in the trance for days, weeks, months, years, but I didn't have the whole thing of becoming something else and experiencing years. I have a friend who went into a trance, came back 5 minutes later and was like extremely shooken up, and he said he remembered an entire person's life from the moment they were born up until they died, as well as some visions of what happened after their death, and he had to go for a walk and catch his breath afterwards because he was overwhelmed with feeling the emotional intensity of having grown up, had the people he loved pass away, fallen in love, and ended up, just the whole life cycle. He saw it all in 5 minutes, and he's a pretty trustworthy guy, so he would have no reason to have lied to me about it. Jacko's talking about Datura. Datura is one that really needs to be used with precision. I would recommend nobody go experiment with any of the anticholinergic valerians. They're very poisonous. There's a lot more opportunity to get hurt or damaged in the experimentation, and I've grown them for 9 years, and I have never consumed them. I really feel that the plant wants us to nurture it and honor it, and if it ever wants you to come to it, you will get it calling. So I would recommend nobody mess with it, but nurture it. Go grow some. Like they're beautiful plants to be around, and they have a very strong like protection kind of vibe to me. DMT, I talked about that in the very beginning, so feel free to go back when it is over. I think DMT is a profound, lucid connection to spirit, and we can draw a very direct revelation and derive guidance about where we need to go in our lives. That's what I get from that. What are your thoughts on N-DMT and 5-MeO-DMT? Really good question. I recently came across some information in the past year. Somebody, I forget who it was, might have been somebody on this community, linked me to a reference that showed 5-MeO-DMT had certain qualities that were bad for the heart, cardiac arrhythmia and things like that. I thought that was kind of interesting. I'm still really interested in Chalipanga, Yopo, Sibyl, things that naturally have 5-MeO-DMT, but I would use them a little bit more cautiously after having encountered that information. We got to really take care of our body, of course. When I was younger, one time I was given crystalline 5-MeO-DMT. I have no idea if it was extracted or if it was synthetic or what. I was a drug nerd enough. I was probably 17. I was a nerd enough to know exactly what it was and be excited about it. But I was also too young, I guess, to be really conscious of the range of production, or else I would have tried to gather some more information about the source that I got it from. However, what I noticed is there seems to have be a yin and yang quality. N-DMT is like light. 5-MeO-DMT is like the void. I smoked it and I fell out of my body, and it felt like I was free falling, and I could feel wind like flying by me, and I felt like I was just spinning around. I didn't have a body, but I was just notably spinning and spinning around in circles while falling. It was really, really wild. I didn't exactly get spiritual guidance from it, but I was just left with this feeling of awe, wow, reality is powerful. So I guess you could say there's a spiritual power to that, but it really wasn't the direct spiritual connection that I get with N-DMT. Alcohol isn't fun anymore. At the end of the night, you just can't do anything but crash out. I agree. Alcohol sucks, in my opinion. Cannabis is medicine. I do agree. It has a wide range of medicinal application. The problem is, though, is people accidentally or subconsciously use that as justification to abuse the shit out of it. And that has been my personal experience years ago. I definitely found myself using it more often than I needed. And I would justify it, or my ego would justify it to me, saying that it was medicine or I was using it for spiritual growth, when really I could have done it probably 1/10 as often and still derive just as much medicinal effect. So I definitely love the plant, though. It's definitely very powerful, and it's got a lot of application. Thanks for all the love, you guys. No music in the background because I want to put this on my YouTube channel. And if I put music on, I was gonna put music on, but if I put music on, then I'll get like there's like copyright flags come up and stuff. I'm trying to be able to hopefully someday make some money on my YouTube channel by getting a following and rambling about things like this as well as other healthy and spiritual stuff. So I'm trying to keep all my videos free of copyrighted information. And sorry if that makes me a sellout, but hey, we're all just trying to get by, right? What plant has been your favorite journey? Cactus has an extremely special place in my heart. Psilocybin mushrooms, very, very powerful. Amanita muscaria, love it. That helped me at a time that nothing else could. Amanita helped my back, my spine, helped my whole body to realign in a way when anything else would just cause rigidity. So really special place. I've used mushrooms in conjunction with MAOIs before, Syrian rue seeds, and I even successfully, this is kind of an interesting fact for any of you psychoactive nerds out there, I successfully reached MAO inhibition using only passion flower, which if you do the reading, some people are like, oh, you know, it's impossible, it's not strong enough, it's considered almost like a mythical idea that you could do it. I'm confident that I've done it, because I've used enough MAOIs to know where it's a notably different experience when you cross the line of inhibiting your MAOs after you consume mushrooms. So, anyways, MAOI with psilocybin was like, wow, it's been years and years. It's been like a decade since I've done it. But man, I mean, that holds a really special place in my heart. It opened like, I would say that was the first time I've had like visions, you know, not just like visuals and like, I mean, I always have visionary things happen with my eyes closed, but I've had with Ayahuasca, which is the common term for MAOI with mushrooms. I had where the floor turned into like a Mayan landscape, and I saw these entities that looked like bird people, like they had a round spherical head. This is a great opportunity to ask this question. Anybody who has any information about symbology or even ancient lore, I would be really grateful if somebody could turn me on to some input about if this symbol means anything in history. But there were these bird people. They had very spherical heads attached to like tubular like necks, and the spherical head had a beak that came out, and then they had like, I don't know, like almost like cartoon looking eyes or something. But there was one of them on each side of me. They stood up like a humanoid, but they were bird head person, and each one had their wing like this. They had a wing reaching out, and it was almost like wrapped around me. Like each of them had one wrapped around me, and they went like this. And like their wing, it had like almost like 3 or 4 feathers, almost like cartoon like, you know, it didn't look like a real bird, but they were wrapped around me, and then they went like this, and they spread their feathers out, and like as they both did it at once like this, and they said, look, look. And then right when they did that, the carpet I was sitting on just turned into these, like what I would only describe as like Aztec visions, like land. I saw like deserts and these buildings, and just felt like I was flying over them, and I got lost in these visions and stuff. But it wasn't just like, oh wow, trippy visual. I came back to it with what I would consider wisdom downloaded or information or something. I mean, I was like 17 at the time, but that was like something afterwards I was like shook to the core. Like, you know, it changed something in me. I'm also a really big fan of working with plants in conjunction, the alchemy of unlocking new pharmacological reactions, as well as different frequencies and aspects of the spiritual geography when using things in conjunction, and using psilocybin and mescaline cactus in conjunction. I've only done that a time or two, but that really felt profound and seemed to be a landmark in my spiritual development. Also, Amanita muscaria with psilocybin mushrooms. I only did that once, I think, and that was amazing. Very powerful. So, yeah, I love all the journeys, though. They're all just very different. And I've had just comparably as powerful journeys just through meditation and sober work as well. So I credit the power of either endogenous neurochemistry or just spiritual connection to be just as powerful as psychedelics. So I always encourage people to really cultivate if you're into tripping, you know, things like that, cultivate a connection to spirit, you know, go meditate, try eating really good and see how much it amplifies your connection to spirit. It's amazing. You know, I'm really into health food, just really trying to be as healthy as I can. And people ask me why. And I'm like, well, first of all, it's not about living forever. It's about, I want to feel good while I'm here. It just seems like common sense. Like I want to feel healthy. And those of you that are into psychoactives, like the acid math community, I think you guys can probably relate to this. It's like, don't you want to feel freaking awesome, like the buzz, like a body high all the time? You know, like when I eat, like when I go periods of eating only raw for like a month, I'm like freaking high. I'm like buzzing and glowing and stuff. And at a certain point, my connection to spirit, my meditative connection becomes so profound when I'm like fasting and things like that, that I can only relate it to like a trip, you know what I mean? It's freaking crazy. So it's kind of like an inside joke I have that, you know, like I tell people I'm just a consciousness junkie, you know. I mean, I like being healthy, but really I'm trying to just reach peak consciousness, and that can only happen in my experience from alchemical combination of refining sexual energy, refining diet, refining sleep cycle, all these things, all the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects all need to be interconnected and balanced in a dynamic manner in order for the psychedelic experience to really reach its peak potential. Have any experience with dopamine or serotonin issues with plant teachers? No, I not directly issues. I went through some energy sickness, I guess you would call it, in a spiritual sense, or I don't know. I don't really even know how to describe it in a psychological sense because it wasn't a traditional psychological issue. But anyways, I went through, you know, a spiritual struggle, whatever you want to call it, a long time ago. And during that period, I had some really weird reactions to psychedelics. People talk about brain zaps with MDMA. I've never done MDMA. I tried a pill thing once when I was younger, but I don't really like amphetamines. Anyways, sorry, thing messed up. I experienced something similar to like what they refer to as like a brain zap one time with cactus, but it was at a time when I was like really, there was a lot of disharmony going on in my life and stuff. So I almost blame myself in a sense because it's something that's never reoccurred since. But I remember taking a hit of pot at the time on this cactus experience, and my brain started like really hurting, and like I don't know what that was. But no, I've never had anything in the realm of serotonin syndrome or anything like that. You just got to be really careful. You know, there's a lot of stuff that you have to be really careful about combining, you know, MAOIs with stuff. You combine MAOI with the wrong thing, you know, it kills you. I mean, you got to be serious. You know, if you're going to experiment with entheogens, you know, respect yourself, respect the plant, respect yourself, respect life, respect your community, your family. You know what I mean? Even if you're nihilistic and whatever, you know, people freak out when people die. You know what I mean? Or people freak out when somebody gets hurt. You know, so love those around you, and you know, let that be an inspiration to respect yourself and respect the plants. You know, because it's all kind of new territory thanks to the cultural suppression of this topic. You know, so I'm honored to have been a guinea pig in these experiments working with these different plants, and I've done my best to do it in an intelligent manner with minimizing the possibility of harm, but it's all relatively uncharted territory, you know, so please, you know, let's educate each other, you know, and let's work together to really develop a strong community wisdom about these things, you know, and that requires diligence and also restraint in a lot of cases, so. Best DMT experience used in conjunction with ketamine. Interesting. I know when I was younger, I used DXM on a handful of occasions, and I did a couple of combinations with that, and out of this world. You know, I haven't done synthetics in a long time, but I can understand why that combination would be pretty powerful. It seems like anything serotonin acting used in conjunction with a dissociative seems extremely powerful. Amanita versus psilocybin. Well, I would hate to ever see them fight because they're just completely different. Amanita is a dissociative in nature, more so than a psychedelic. It has psychedelic qualities, but it's very different. Amanita to me has this inherent kind of medicinal property, anti-anxiety, probably antidepressant. It really relaxes my body in a way that nothing else does. It definitely, I've accessed spiritual like states. I had an Amanita experience once that felt almost identical to an ayahuasca experience I had, where I went completely out of body, saw my whole life compile into what I can only describe as being a singularity. It was as though my whole life, like all time started chopping and blurring together, and I started like losing track of what was a thought and what was something I experienced, and then it all just mushed together, and I found myself outside of my body. I wasn't in my body anymore. There was no reference to my body, but everything I knew and had experienced was what was like this ovular like sphere thing in front of me, and I was just looking at it, and I was like freaked out. I was like, what happened? Like, why am I not there anymore? You know, I still had a certain understanding of who I was, but I was completely detached from it. So I was nervous, thinking that, you know, I could have like died or whatever. I was really freaked out, and I felt this presence around me. It was, you know, it was my essence, and then this oval that contained my life data, and then this essence that was just so big, and it was interconnecting everything that I could only relate to being like God, or, you know, something of a vast nature. And it surrounded me with this warmth and comfort, and reassured me that I was on a spiritual path, and that when we are pursuing our spiritual growth, there's nothing to fear, and we just need to really try our best and keep walking forward. And that released all the anxiety, and I was just looking at the little sphere thing, feeling safe. And then at a certain point, found myself back in my body. So they're really different. I think for most people, psilocybin is probably going to be more appealing. Amanita, not everybody really resonates with it, but if you resonate with Amanita, I mean, you'll love it forever. It's very powerful and very unique. Oh, Wendy asked to talk more about Amanita. I hope that helps. I just did that. Felt like they had permanent liver damage and whatnot after eating it. I think, from my experience, there's a lot of unnecessary hype about toxicity with Amanita muscaria. And a big part of this is reasonable because of the fact that the other species in the genus of Amanita are very deadly. Some of the most deadly mushrooms in the whole world are in the Amanita genus. So there's definitely a lot of toxicity in the family, but from my understanding, muscarin is, which is the toxic alkaloid, is not in muscaria, or if it is, it's present in such small amounts that it is not anything to be worried about. Another fascinating thing is that the antidote, this is pretty interesting alchemy here, the antidote for muscarin poisoning is atropine, which is what is in datura. And atropine has been found in Amanita muscaria. So I believe it has a natural balance to it. But when I use Amanita, I prepare it as a sun tea, and I don't consume the flesh whole, and this seems to minimize all physical discomfort. So I can't really say for sure if there is anything heavy about it. I don't know. I mean, I know just from reading enough that it doesn't really seem to be the case. I just think I don't know. I don't want to say for sure. It's a really powerful plant, you know, and it's not really very well understood in terms of the culture. So, you know, be careful with it and approach respectfully. But in my experience using the sun tea, I never had anything anywhere near resembling physical detriment, and I actually used it daily in small amounts, small medium amounts for not exactly daily, but I used it several times weekly for a few months straight, and I walked away with absolutely no problem, and it actually caused a lot of healing reactions in me by balancing my back and neck, which I was having a lot of issues with. So Ketome, O'Leary says, I'm thinking you meant to spell kratom, or maybe your spell check messed it up. Kratom is a beautiful plant. I think it has the potential for abuse because of the fact that it acts on opiate receptors. I don't use it too entirely often. I try to reserve it for days that I feel really particularly low energy, and it really helps me to get upbeat and get working, similar to almost like caffeine or something. It really gives me like a pep. I've also used it in meditation, and I particularly like kratom in conjunction with qigong and energy movement work because it relaxes your body so much that you can walk around and just like I'll walk and do kind of energy work while I'm walking, and it just like opens up the flow so well. So it's a definitely beautiful plant. Kratom is interesting because, Kratom works on opiate receptors in the brain, but the active compound in it, mitragynine, more closely resembles tryptamine. So chemically, it's similar to tryptamine, psilocybin, DMT, and things like that. It's pretty strange, you know. Strong kratom moments, I can really see this certain kind of tryptamine-like feeling to it, almost like this dimensional change. And it seems like textures of things start to get. It's as though I start to have a strong emotional response to textures on strong doses of kratom, which sounds kind of strange, but that's a very tryptamine kind of thing for me. Like, you know, like this pillow or something. Like, it would the texture would almost seem louder just looking at it at a certain point. With kratom or mushrooms or something like that, to the degree where I look at it and I'm like, you know what I mean? It's like almost like, not bad, but it kind of just strikes your emotions. You're like, whoa, just looking at something, which is a pretty strange tryptamine type of effect. Georgia, Eddie says, I'm not familiar with that. If you want to comment more down below, I'll come and talk to you. I have not heard of that one. I don't know all of them, but I know a lot of plants. One more question. Would you recommend any information source such as websites or books you enjoyed or have learned from? You know, the standard. Arrowwood is great. I used to really crawl around the Blue Light forum quite a bit, and I've posted some responses on there that were like essays, so there's a lot of cool information on there. Forums in general, you know, they're all hit or miss. You know, Blue Light I kind of liked because it had a little bit more consistent intellectual input, a little bit less of like the just... They were very focused on harm reduction, so it seems like this was 5 or 6 years ago at least. I'm not sure if they've kept it up, but they were always focused on harm reduction, so there was a really strong element of just knowledge, and there was a lot less of the irresponsible, like, oh yeah, just take that, you know, stuff, which I don't resonate with. So books, Wizard of the Four Winds, that's a really powerful book about Wakuma shamanism. That one's really in-depth. Plants of the Gods, that's got, I forget who wrote that one. That's that kind of like the standard, you know, if you just want to kind of explore entheogens, Plants of the Gods is a great one. What are your personal thoughts on DMT? I went into DMT quite a bit, so Brianna, please go back. It really forms a direct line of communication with spirit for me. Thoughts on San Pedro cactus, Eduardo? I talked about San Pedro a whole lot too. It also forms a very profound connection with spirit, but San Pedro has the unique effect of keeping me very grounded, very rooted, and it allows me to experience the ability to draw in this wisdom in a very well-paced manner. That it's all very digestible with the cactus, and it all just... Cactus also has this inherent kind of healing property. It just seems to really move my body towards health as well as balancing. If in terms of like energy and auras and things like that, I feel like the cactus seems to align the body with the spirit, like very consistently. Thoughts on LSD? That is one of the synthetics that I have used. I don't use really any synthetics ever, for the most part. That is one that I have used in years past, though, after I stopped everything else, just because I guess it had a certain place in my heart. I think that LSD has a strong potential to help people to evolve. What's interesting to me about it is that the experience seems to be as though you're communicating with, like, the collective conscious or your own mind or your higher self rather than a plant teacher. The LSD essence seems to be there. In a shamanistic context, there's something that I can connect with from it that seems to be like an essence, but a lot of it is just more like you're in the driver's seat of your higher consciousness and you're guiding your own transformation. So in my experience of seeing people use LSD, the reason why it's so popular in the culture is because a lot of people aren't really wanting the whole spiritual development thing, so they can eat LSD and they're in the driver's seat, so they can drive themselves to a concert and just dance and melt and have fun, and, you know, to each their own. I'm not saying that's inherently wrong, and I'm sure some people are going to reach revelation in those kinds of experiences. You know, it happens. But I think that for the fullest potential to be unlocked with LSD, or probably any synthetic, you know, I tried not to do any synthetics ever since I was like 17, basically. I think there was a time I ate a mescaline capsule back when I was foolish enough at age like 18 to think that, you know, somebody would be selling mescaline at a festival. I had something that was a research chem, probably like a 2CI or something like that, you know, and I was pretty frustrated that I was, you know, dosed on something I didn't want. But anyways, I think the same principle applies with all the synthetics, is that if you're going into it with intention, and if you know how to operate your vessel, you know, picture like we're all this spiritual technology, okay? So from meditation, you can learn to operate and you can fly into higher consciousness. You know, you learn to eat good and refine your body. You can fly into these higher consciousness and receive revelations. Like, picture that's just a standard human experience, because in my experience, that's really what it is. Psychedelics are like throwing, like, you know, some super fuel in the engine and, you know, you blast off. They're powerful in their ability to get you extremely high and extremely connected very quickly, but the connections that they bring you are something that is inherent in our experience of life if we practice. So in that sense, people that I know who are pretty devout about developing their spiritual practice and taking their life really seriously seem to be able to use LSD in a manner which does bring about strong spiritual experiences. In the past decade, the times I've done LSD, I have out-of-body experiences. I have revelations, and it's got a lot of benefit. It seemed like in the recent years, even though it's, as much as I'm a very naturalist at heart, I can't help but really credit it, with being something that seems to go down relatively clean in my body. And I know also that it has the effect of causing rapid neuron rewiring, as all psychedelics do, and there's been some connection to like fighting Alzheimer's and things like that with LSD. I would imagine those same principles would be present with Woodrose and a lot of the organic counterparts. But I would recommend people go to the plants to really learn to their fullest and to heal to their fullest. But I think that LSD has a powerful potential for visionary work and evolving the mind if used properly. I guess in the past decade when I've used LSD, it really seems to be a very intellectual experience. It's like my brain talking to my brain, or my conscious mind talking to my brain or something, and it leaves me with a certain artistic fuel and inspiration, and go figure, like the 60s and 70s, that seems to be what has happened. So I recommend working with plants more than anything, but I think that LSD seems to be extremely safe, and if used in the right context, seems to be relatively beneficial for people's development. Tyrone, I'm not going to respond to that because I don't want to derail this into too much goofiness and cause a chain reaction where everybody starts asking super goofy questions. My favorite DMT experience, I have not used DMT an entirely huge amount, believe it or not. I've used more of the exotic plants than DMT, but almost all of my DMT experiences have been this. It's like, okay, as soon as it comes on, if I smoke it, as soon as it comes on, I feel like my hair stand up, like, oh goodness, what did I do? It's like, pow, you're in another world. But before I can even react, before I can start feeling nervous, it feels like my consciousness is being massaged, and I feel that the essence of the plant come down, and it feels like it's untying these anxiety boundaries. And it says, anything, let's say I would be worried about, should I be doing this? Or, whatever, anything I'm anxious about in my life in that moment, before I can even respond to the anxiety about it, it just unties the knot of that anxiety and just releases it. My most powerful experience that I can think of, I met the acacia essence, and it was this giant face. I hate to say it, but it looked very Alex Gray-esque, how cliche, right? But it was this giant face that was connected to other faces on the sides, and I stood before it, and I was very small feeling, and it was very large feeling. And it just had the sense of magnitude, and I immediately felt, it felt as though it like brought these arms in front of me. I didn't see this quite, but I felt these arms in front of me that had these like whirlwinds, almost like a carnival ride or something. Each arm had these like spinning things. And when it passed one before me, I felt myself engaged in this swirling, and it felt like horror. Like I was struck with the emotion of just like this horror and disorientation. I was like spinning around, and before I could really respond to it, it pulled that arm away and then brought this other one, and the other one was just like this bliss. And it's interesting because when the first arm came about, it was like I felt a psychic transmission from the acacia that said, like, you're in our domain now, and we're in control of what you experience. And it was like, whoo, and I just felt this like horror, and I was like, oh no. But before I could really worry about it, it replaced it with this one of just total bliss and like this divine connection. And it was basically saying, but we're going to let you go here, we like what you're doing, and we want to show you something beautiful. So, and then after that, I saw myself sitting in a circle of people. I don't remember who a few of them were. I guess almost like guardian angel type thing or something. I don't really know what they were. And one of them was one of my friends who had passed away like 3 months before, and it was very real that he was right there in this circle of spirits with me. It was powerful. I asked that because my first experience with marijuana was not good, so I gave it another try, and then I started smoking it and created a resistance to it. My past months felt really weird when sober. I wasn't feeling things, and then suddenly I had a paranoia, and some physical stimulation felt weird when sober too. Then now I stopped and I'm back to normal. Kind of don't feel the same. Yeah, I would say probably don't work with cannabis, or at least give it a while. You know, our neurochemistry is always changing. So, you know, maybe a year from now, maybe after some new experiences, it might be beneficial for you, possibly, but it's just might not be for you. You know, the plants speak to us through the way that they interact with our body. So, you know, that might just be something you don't get along with. And I wouldn't be discouraged with experimenting with other plants. There's a lot of people that don't get along very well with cannabis. I've taken a lot of hallucinogens in my day and never seen anything that wasn't naturally there. That what will hallucinogen that can help me reach my goal of actually hallucinating? Well, first of all, I would say to achieve the goal of saying something that is not entirely there is possibly not the best goal, because I think that really it's a little bit dangerous, I think, to go into these experiences with the intention of just trying to really reach the farthest depth of our mind. In my experience, seeing, you know, my experience of seeing the culture, it seems like there's, you know, definitely the possibility that you can get a disharmonious evolution of your neurochemistry. So seeing things that are not entirely there, it might be one of those, like, be careful what you wish for type of thing. But what I will say that if you're meant to go to that far depth of seeing, you know, I don't know, you know, I've seen like elf-looking things in the woods and weird stuff. I would encourage meditation and spiritual practice and things, and the more that you learn to operate the vessel of your spiritual consciousness sober, the more that you will find yourself able to reach previously unfathomable realms during the psychedelic experience. Smoke DMT for the taste and not to teach humans. Why I gave it up. The taste is pretty weird. It's strange to want to smoke it just for that. But to each their own. Would you also consider it a possible drug? I'm guessing you were probably talking about cannabis. I'm sorry, I'm not on this flow. I'm way behind you guys. Oh, yeah. To me, there's here's the division with psychoactives. In my mind, you've got intoxicants and then you've got psychedelics. Psychedelics cause experiences. They are receptive to the environment and the context, and the experience that comes about is going to be relative to whatever's going on in your mind and the situation. Intoxicants bring a specific effect every time. You know, in my subjective view, alcohol, you know, pills, you know, those are intoxicants. They bring about an exact effect every time. Amphetamines, even MDMA, I'm personally not a fan of that. Just my awareness of pharmacology and neurochemistry and stuff, I don't like any amphetamines. But anyways, I consider that to be an intoxicant. But there's some things that are kind of somewhere in the middle, and I think MDMA is probably somewhere in that middle. Cannabis is one that seems right in the middle. It can kind of go either way. You can use it to just get stoned and get messed up, or it can be a profound teacher plant. So, man, I've been talking so fast. I haven't even had a chance to drink myself. I got this incense too, guys. I'm gonna burn some incense. Got these little charcoal tabs. I've got frankincense and myrrh. Gonna get down. Light this thing up, and then I'm going to move on to the next one. Alright, Derek's asking about a DMT story. Well, I just said that one not too long ago. Wendy, Hawaiian Baby Woodrose seeds. I love them. They actually, the company I started, Eternity in a Box, the Woodrose told me to start that, believe it or not. That's something I normally don't talk about online in particular, but yeah, I had eaten Woodrose seeds. And on that note, if anybody goes to that site, everything we sell there is not for consumption. Everything that I'm saying here is strictly for educational advice, and I do not encourage anyone to consume any plants that are illegal. That is a serious note. Hawaiian Woodrose seeds, though, I had eaten some of those years ago, 2012 it was, and they encouraged me very directly to start selling them. And because I had an abundance and I didn't know really what to do with them. So I started selling them legally, on eBay. It's not for consumption, it was legit stuff. And they started selling pretty soon. And then the Woodrose, like I had eaten them, and then I listed them on eBay while I was tripping. Kind of weird, right? But they told me to do it. I'm really serious about that. Like, I felt a direct transmission from it, and it was like, share us with the world. So I did. 2 days later or so, I had eaten a few more of the seeds, and then my eBay listing started selling. Sold like 3 or 4 of them right off the bat. And the seeds were like, I got the bags ready. I put them in little bags and sealed them up, and I put them in envelopes, and I was going to ship them. And then the seeds kind of spoke to me again. And they were like, don't just put us in bags and sell us. Make it all cool and exciting and artistic. And I was like, okay, I can do that. It was kind of felt mischievous and fun, So I drew up a business card and made up the name Eternity in a box. I flipped through a poetry book and drew up the logo to represent paradox of transcendence of duality, night and day being coexisting, the moon cycles all existing at one point, eternity in a box, forever contained within a point. That was an early experience I had with it, and I've never really gone to really high doses with them. I'm really, really sensitive, so I keep the doses pretty low with most things, and I reach visionary levels with it. That was with 2 seeds for me, and I know some people, might need more or whatever, but I was having noticeable, I don't know, for me it was like, LSD, like, shifting and stuff like that, and more importantly, trance wisdom, sit there and write. I would sit there with the poetry book and write things, and I broke through a lot of boundaries and learned a lot of stuff. Incense burner. I think it's really powerful to approach plants with intention. This is frankincense, copal, and myrrh. Oops, sorry, get some hair in it. Even these, the smell of something changes your neurochemistry extremely quickly. So approaching these plants with honor and gratitude is really powerful. So I would like to take brief note of that even things like incense, or like on the Eternity website, like I mentioned, we sell the teachers as incense. That's not like just some kind of legal bullshit gray area thing. I'm serious. You can meditate with those plants. You can burn a chacruna leaf and feel the vibrations and tune into it. Might take some work in terms of developing your consciousness and tuning into the different plant essences and tuning into meditation, but just being around plants and feeling the energy of them it's a very powerful thing, so yeah. Did you drink human piss or reindeer on Amanita and Syrian rue? You seem odd. Well, I would have... I don't know. I don't know if you're just trying to insult me or not. I'm not I'm not going to go into that too specifically. However, I can attest to the fact from anecdotal reports from people in my community that the consumption of the urine following the consumption of Amanita muscaria does indeed recycle the effect of the muscamal and cause an intensification of the effect. Could you have brought your mind to those places without psychedelics if you had never had psychedelics? A question that's from Zachary, a question that I have asked myself a million times. I can credit the power of human consciousness and human experience, and just reading sacred texts and things. Obviously, people do it without psychedelics, and they reach visionary states and stuff. So I think I would like to say yes, but I do not have the evidence firsthand to really say. I wonder if I had never consumed any psychedelic plants, would the meditative experience be as profound, or maybe it would have taken a lot longer to reach that level of profundity. So it's hard to say. Really good question there. Meditation is just as powerful, being in control of your mind. You can learn how to activate certain chemicals without any drug. That's Jesus. Totally agree. Do you have to follow a specific diet when using MAOIs? Taylor asks. Yes. Research La Dieta that the ayahuasca practitioners use. If you're just going to do Syrian rue by itself, or Cappy by itself, still need to be really careful. Certain pharmaceuticals in conjunction will kill you, just simple as that. You know, one dose of it can kill you. Different foods can be detrimental and cause heart issues and things like that. So MAOIs are nothing to mess around with. You know, no plants are, but MAOIs are a very easy class to identify as being no joke. You know, definitely be really careful with them. And I don't know enough to say specifically exactly what you should and shouldn't consume. I encourage thorough research before using any MAOIs. You ever tried 5-MeO-DMT, Chris? I did discuss my 5-MeO-DMT experience earlier in this video. My first psychedelic experience, Salvia was the very first one that was breakthrough. I had done DXM before then and started getting kind of philosophical, but Salvia was the one where all of a sudden I found myself in another realm, just talking with entities and lost in these dream sequences, and it just changed everything. The first one after that for me was Psilocybin, and that was what really, I would say, kind of shook me into like, okay, these are tools, this, I need to understand this. It, I would say, almost awoke this kind of shamanistic fascination, you know, and then it wasn't until I started meditating and things that I really started to really be able to utilize the plants to their fullest potential. Are you on anything as of right now? Cacao! I've got cacao and maca here, so I've got a certain vibrational elevation from that, but no, I'm not tripping or anything right now. Sorry if I'm manic and talking quickly. I have a tendency to do that without any drugs. Another thing I have to share with you guys, not a joint, not smoking right now. This is Damiana. This is a common medicinal herb. Well, let me give it some love. Most commonly used as a medicinal herb, Damiana has a very profound relaxing quality and is very interesting. Great for meditation and just kind of calming the mind and getting you, taking the edge off, you know, after a hard day at work or something. Kind of go for a little walk and smoke Damiana, and it's great. Not sure what neuroreceptors it works on. I want to say dopamine, though. It kind of reminds me of cannabis, honestly. Silver crystal liquid, not sure what you're referring to, probably LSD. We are the drug, the trip is our life, misinformation is swag. Interesting. Are you on anything right now? Disinterested? Cacao, and now Damiana. Plants of the Gods is by Terence McKenna, one of the most influential psychonauts in my opinion. Who influenced you or helped you out the most along your spiritual journey? Very, very good question. I really enjoy McKenna. I'm kind of like a nerd in general. I like science and stuff. Leary was pretty fascinating. I like to just really how direct and logical and analytical he is. McKenna, the whimsical kind of like mythical quality of McKenna, I really like that too. I really don't have a whole lot of, I mean, I'm not trying to overcredit myself, but almost all of the work that I've developed, I mean, I've read a handful of things about shamanism through the years. I've like scoured huge amounts of trip reports online, you know, but honestly, the majority of the understanding that I have in terms of spiritual connection to plants comes from direct experience. I've been practicing shamanism wholeheartedly and as a devout spiritual discipline for over a decade now. I'm 28. I probably, you know, the transition happened between like 16 and 18, so, you know, at least 10 years of taking this very seriously and feeling a direct change in consciousness every time I use a plant, and forming a direct line of, you know, psychic communication or whatever you want to call it with the plant each time I use it. So almost all of this is kind of my own pondering, and then obviously pharmacology and things like that. It's stuff I've read online. Alex, what are you tweaking on right now? Nothing. I am just really manic, and I am pretty good at adjusting the firing rates of my neurons. Sorry if I'm talking too quick for you guys to digest it, though. But I'm trying to cover information very quickly. Thoughts on nitrous oxide? Good question. I don't like it. Well, I don't do it at all anymore. I've done it a handful of times when I was younger. It kind of seemed boring to me. It felt like very much like a drug. Like I was just kind of like you know, it's like everyone's like, wow, 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 and you're just like fucking lost. You know, I remember seeing like this big spiral thing, rainbow spiral thing once. It was interesting, you know, but I never really got into it. It just seems too like much of an intoxicant. I'm not able to really derive like meaning or really messages. I mean, you know, in terms of like experiencing something wild and wacky, you know, it was effective, but I never really resonated with it. Pato, I wish I could be your friend. We can be friends, my friend. Send me a friend request and let's talk. I'm always rambling about things along the lines of spiritual development, and I would like to hear your ramblings and input as well. Favorite music to listen to on psychedelics? A lot of the journeying I do without any music, just so that I can really experience the full depths of the mind, kind of how McKenna relates, you know, like the 5 grams in darkness or whatever. I'm not a fan of his encouraging everyone to do that. However, I think that there's a lot of value in the silence. I like a lot of mostly kind of like old school psychedelic rock kind of stuff. Not really into electronic music. I know that's pretty popular nowadays for trip experiences. Ambient music, William Basinski, that's some trippy stuff. That's electronic, I guess, but it's like ambient. You just feel like you're like floating and stuff. I've had some good psychedelic experiences listening to that. When do you think it's okay to start experimenting with psychedelics? Go meditate right now and ask yourself, ask the divine, you know, cultivate a connection with spirit, and the answers will come from there. You know, I don't really have answers. I'm doing my best to try to, you know, transmit a little bit of awareness from spirit, as well as just throw information at you from my crazy brain of all, you know, information I've absorbed. But the answers are in you. Every person is a unique puzzle, and your connection to spirit is a unique junction. So cultivate your connection to spirit, cultivate an awareness of your own consciousness through meditation, and then you will find an increasing ability to really feel out what is appropriate in any given moment. Got some goofy questions here. I'm not going to go into that. I only have ever worked with a few Woodrose at a time. I'm really way too sensitive to things, so I never did too many of them. Andrew? Again, ask me if I'm on anything. No, I talk really fast. And my mind, just from years of working with entheogens and more importantly, just years of meditation and really cultivating a grounded disposition from refining my diet, refining my sexual energy, and all these different aspects of my being, I've developed the ability to pretty freely dance between my neuron connections, or my neuron webs have developed a mandalic pattern with lots of interconnections, which is closely related to what occurs during a psychedelic experience, which is essentially neuro-abstraction. Neurons start firing to new patterns that they don't normally do. You do this for years, not just tripping, but meditating for years. Your neurons will form patterns that are fairly interconnected on a regular basis. So I dwell in a fairly trippy space, and I've integrated it in a manner to where I am lucid and able to function in a highly neuro-abstract disposition. Shaitan? That's interesting. One of my best friends is named Shaitan. Meditation or psychedelics? I think that they are both avenues for evolution, healing, and development. I think that meditation is a must for spiritual development. Psychedelics are going to resonate with some people and not with others, but I think that they're both really valuable. I think I really resonate with Taoism in particular, and in Taoism it's essentially like the kind of gist is like there's no like duality of like right and wrong. It's all about just finding a middle way and finding how to find harmony in your own path. So, you know, and meditate, feel out where your path is, where you think your path is, and then search for balance in that path. You know, I don't know what's right for you. I don't know if meditation or psychedelics is better, but to me, it seems that there's a middle path and there's a way to utilize all the tools at our disposal to really evolve as much as we can. Thank you all for the appreciation. Do you think psychedelics can help people who have damaged their brain with other drugs, like in a regenerative way? That's an awesome question, Molly. Very awesome question. There's a couple angles to that. There's brain damage in the sense of like literally damaging parts of your brain. Like alcohol, anything neurotoxic that's literally going to damage your brain. I'm not sure how things can regenerate after that. I don't know. I mean, I would like to think that Wakuma, San Pedro, ayahuasca, things like that can cause neuroregeneration. I am pretty sure certain things can bring about neuroregeneration, but I'm not sure which things. But then the other half of, damage from drug use is going to be essentially neuro-rewiring. You got to think that any drug you do, whether it's psychedelic or not, it's causing your neural patterns to evolve and to change. The way you think is changing based on drug use. So if somebody does intoxicants regularly for a while, they're rewiring their brain to think in a dull manner. The neural connections are just dwindling and becoming very linear and simplistic. Using psychedelics for a while, it's going to develop in a complex way. It's not necessarily good, though. I mean, it depends on what you're doing. What are you thinking about? Why are you in that experience? What context are you in? What setting? I mean, the changes that happen to the brain from psychedelics are extremely wide-reaching. A lot of different things could happen. So with that being said, if the damage from drug use is relative to neuron pattern changes and not physical damage to the brain, then yes, I think psychedelics are absolutely the thing that can help to change that back to something harmonious. One of the very literal changes that psychedelics do is, like I was saying a couple minutes ago, they cause neuro-abstraction. Every day you wake up and your brain thinks relatively the same way. Neurons fire given paths. It's like the path of least resistance. Your neurons just go down these paths and they just keep firing. That's what causes habits. That's what causes addictions. That's what causes your personality. It's all just your brain firing in these certain patterns. So when you trip on something, your brain is starting to connect dots that it normally doesn't connect. Instead of just do, it's like fires one over here and one over here. And on strong experiences, especially like you can see some of these brain mapping studies have been done in the past couple of years. Science is starting to study psychedelics more, and you can see how psilocybin was mapped, I guess like MRIs or something like that, and they show how the whole brain starts talking to each other. So each neuron is like talking to all these other neurons that it's not normally talking to. So that's a very specific effect that psychedelics do. I mean, that's like, is about as fact as it gets. They cause neuro-abstraction and neuroplasticity. They cause your neurons to start evolving in ways they don't normally. So I think that's where the profound therapeutic benefit comes in with psychedelics, is in the right context. You're able to help your brain to cause and develop new neuron patterns that it didn't have before, but that's also why you have to really be respectful to these things and use them in a context that is going to be beneficial to your development. Your emotions, your mind, all of that is changing, permanently from psychedelic experiences. So it shouldn't be used haphazardly, in my opinion, if you have your own best interest in mind. DMT, I talked about earlier. Changa, I have used Changa. Changa is DMT used with MAOI in a smokable form. Changa seemed to root the experience in and make it feel more safe and secure. I did it with Cappy Leaf. The Cappy Leaf made a certain, like I said, a feeling of security and connection that I didn't get with just the smoking the crystal DMT. The crystal DMT just like blasts off, where with the Changa, it almost felt like a tree or something, like I was rooted in and I was also growing up to the top of the tree, but I was still connected. I really liked it. It also made the experience a little bit more digestible, and it was a little bit easier to remember. Ketamine I talked about earlier. Changa, yeah, I just answered that one. Why not just smoke cannabis? I explained cannabis earlier. Cannabis has a wide range of applications, and I do not want to smoke any right now. I'm working with Damiana. I will work with cannabis again in the future. I took an extended break because I was doing it too frequently, and I needed to cultivate discipline. Oh, goodness, Pato, that does not sound like a good idea. I would encourage you to not do that again, because that's going to be really detrimental to your body and mind, I believe. Ketamine and the spirit I described earlier, my awareness of dissociatives. Ketamine, it seems like some people do get spiritual experiences from it, but it's also really addicting. I know a lot of people that have gotten like kind of carried away with it, and it really seems to like dull the aura or the energy in some way. Like people that abuse dissociatives seem to be really like dampened. So I would be really cautious with any dissociatives. Even Amanita muscaria I'd be really cautious with, but Amanita seems to not have the same detrimental effects that the synthetic dissociatives do. San Pedro, I talked about DMT, I talked about extensively. Sent me a friend request. I will accept it. Pato saying you wish you had psychedelics instead of alcohol. Learn meditation, man, or fast, you know? If you don't, it's not about having a hookup. Cultivate higher consciousness in and of yourself. That is the best advice I think I could give you. You know? The better you eat, the more you take care of your mind, the more you balance your emotions out for meditation, the more that you will find yourself freaking in tune with spirit, and your sensory perception enlivens. I mean, life gets trippy when you tune in and you start really trying to develop yourself. So. Saying, going to rehab tomorrow. I wish you the very best in that, brother. I've had so many friends get carried away with addictions, and I have so much sympathy and also a lot of empowerment to offer. You can smash whatever addiction you've got. You can smash it. You know, there's no, I'm a victim, in my opinion. There's no, I'm a victim, oh, it's a disease. Like, be in a place of power, feel strong, just kick its ass and move on, you know. Be strong and move forward with your life, you know. I have friends that have been addicted for years to the heaviest shit out there, and they're good now, you know. So just move forward and be diligent. Asking about DMT and alcohol. I talked about those earlier. Thoughts on lucid dreaming? I'm an avid lucid dreamer and has played a large role in my spiritual journey. Awesome question. Awesome question, Nicolina. I used to lucid dream every day. I have not been doing it as frequently, but I get probably one or two a month, I would say. The problem is I don't really remember a lot of my dreams, and I think it's because my sleep cycle is so whack. I end up staying up too late and stuff, and it seems like when my sleep cycle is more balanced, my dreams are more vivid. So I'd really like to balance that chaotic aspect of myself. I've learned a lot from my lucid dreams, though. They started out as being very childish. You know, when I was 16, 17, it would be like, you have a lucid dream and you want to just fulfill these basal impulses, you know, sexual things, or doing a drug in a dream or something like that. And as I've grown, mentally and physically and spiritually, the more that I found myself really like trying to make use of lucid dreams. Went out. When I find myself in lucid dreams now, my tendency is to meditate in the dream, investigate. I'll start looking around at things. I've had some dreams in the past. Maybe I'll make a video about this sometime in the future. But I had this series of dreams, and when was it? I guess it was this year or last year, maybe. I don't know. In the last year, I had 7 dreams that were all about fighting like dark spirits or something. I mean, it sounds kind of weird, but they all manifest in different forms. But through those series of lucid dreams, I learned a whole lot about myself, and it served as a profound reflection about the spiritual battles that I've been through in my life, and they were also, the sequence of dreams was very empowering to me and helped me to really understand some of the specifics of how I'm interacting with spiritual connection. And another thing on that note is, neurogenic plants. That's some of the ones that we sell at Eternity in a Box that are legal to consume. So you know, you can experiment with those, but like I said, don't consume the teacher plants from us, please. You know, be responsible. We're legal vendor, and I'm only providing this information about some of those the plants that are not allowed to be consumed. I'm only providing information for educational purposes, and I'm not coming as a representative of them. I'm just referencing it so that you can understand where I'm coming from. But the oneirogens such as Kalia zakateki, Silene capensis, Intada reedi, These are very powerful in affecting lucid dreams. Mugwort also. Kava kava, that's one that, I'm surprised nobody's asked me about kava on here. But nobody talks about kava as being a dreamer, but every time I do kava, my dreams are super vivid. So, I mean, there's something to that for sure. Amanita muscaria is also a dreamer, but like, if you're really, Nicolina, if you're really into lucid dreaming, consider maybe meditating with some plants that are oneirogenic, which means dream activating, dream generating. Couple curious questions. What book on psychedelics or psychology would recommend? And what's your opinion on someone taking 100 to 150 micrograms of LSD who has mild hallucinations and slight paranoia conditionally? Ooh, interesting question. Psychedelics, I mentioned the books earlier. Wizard of the Four Winds is one of my favorites about shamanism. Psychology, I'm looking over my bookshelf. I liked the Leary stuff a lot. It crosses into psychology. I mean, it's obvious, it is psychology, but, encompasses psychedelics quite a bit. I'm going to say, James, practice meditation and really just tune in. It seems like there's a lot of instances where people that have perceptual distortions without psychedelics, it seems like some of them, when they go to psychedelics, it benefits and helps them to get over that. But then other people, it exasperates it and makes it worse. So I'm not going to say do it. I will say that LSD might not be the best option out of those. I personally would be a lot quicker to recommend somebody work with cactus. It just seems to be a little bit more harmonious, and it seems to affect the consciousness in a way which is a little bit less radical and a little bit less unpredictable, I guess. I don't know. Do you think psychedelics can help someone who has damaged their brain with other drugs in a regenerative way? Okay, yeah, that one was already posted. Alright, sending me info. I'm not sure what you're referring to, but I am happy to receive your info. I am studying philosophy of religion at university, so I was just wondering what you think about long-standing psychedelic religious practices like shamanism, if Western exposure to these practices is a good thing because we get to know about these amazing things, or a bad thing because now the people are going into the experiences without proper knowledge and intentions. Really good question. I think that there's a lot of benefit to exploring and developing an understanding of the traditional use of the plants. A big focus on what this whole video is about is, for me, it's coming from the shamanistic perspective. It's something I take really seriously. I look at all the plants as being allies. They're not just drugs. They're something that I use with respect, and I go to it as I would a friend. I'm asking it for help, and I'm going into it trying to bring my best energy and my best perspective to the table. Let me see your question again. I think that as long as we absorb that information and approach with our best intention, I think it is only good for the Western world to have that knowledge. I think the detriment comes, first of all, in us infringing in native ways and imposing, essentially contaminating the native practices with our own current Western paradigm. That's unfortunate, but I guess everything's in a state of evolution, so I'm not going to say it's inherently wrong. The other thing is, this is something I've seen with friends and community to some degree, people kind of getting a certain level of I can't think of the right term, almost like elitism, I guess, when it comes to the native way being like the right way and anything else is wrong. I'm obviously pretty strict about how I use these plants, but I really think that everything is in a constant state of evolution, and that the way that the natives came about developing an awareness of how to use all these plants and the way that they chose to use those plants, it came from scratch at some point, and they started communicating with the spirit and receiving information. And through time, they alchemically refine those practices through years of experience into whatever we currently see as being the developed ritual and the developed ceremonies. So I think in that same sense, those ceremonies are still evolving. So myself, I respect and utilize the wisdom of the natives and the ancients, and a lot of it to me still resonates, and I take it really seriously. But I also don't think that it's set in stone, like, oh, well, you got to do it the exact native way. You've got to sit there and stare at a candlelight and meditate, on the plant, or else you're abusing it. Like, I really don't think that's the case. It's all about connecting our own consciousness with the plant spirits. When we do that, we will receive information through time, and that information will lead us on a path of developing a harmonious connection with those plants. So ancient ceremonies are beautiful in their own way, and in some instances they might have relevance in modern time, but I think it's also just as important to turn the page and develop our own rituals and our own ceremonies and our own connection to the plants. I try to see a balance in all things, and I think balancing the adherence to native ceremony, the balance of that to the development of our own rituals, seems to be something that cultivates a profound harmony and has a necessary balance of structure and spontaneity. Favorite mushrooms experience? Oh man, I can't even think of specific mushroom experiences. I've had a lot of mushrooms when I was younger. I haven't used them a whole lot in the recent years, but I've had time unwind on mushrooms. Like, picture it's like a thread or something. Like, every day it's like the start of the day, the end of the day. Picture it's like a fiber. Then that fiber unwinds, kind of like a string. If you unwind it, it's made up of threads. I've seen that happen with time, to where a night became 5 or more coexisting potentials all traveling together, and I was experiencing them all simultaneously. My consciousness would kind of like zoom in on different ones at different times, but they were all coexisting, and I really had no determination of which one was really occurring, or if they were all simultaneously occurring. And thinking about quantum physics and stuff, the only way I can really explain that, it could just be, I was tripping and it was all nonsense. I'm willing to acknowledge that. In terms of trying to apply some level of logic and quantum physics understanding to it, it seemed as though my ability as an observer to differentiate and force the quantum potentials into given places, like quantum physics, the idea that things exist as probability waves until observed, and then they collapse into particles at given places. It seems as though my ability to observe reality in a coherent manner and collapse probability waves into particles existing in exact places at exact times seemed to fail. And I could no longer really observe and determine absolutely that the night was existing in one given way at one time. So I started to experience things as simultaneous possibilities that all could have existed. They all started from one point and they all ended at a certain point, But then at the very end of the night, it's like all of those probabilities fold back up into one thing, and then one of them ended up existing, and then the other ones were just possibilities. And through cultivating my connection to the mushrooms, I can't help but think that that's where some of the more magic and true, powerful, miraculous application comes into play. The idea of learning to cultivate and harness that ability to where you can go into, let's say some shaman trying to heal someone, walk up before the person, and then they see all the coexisting possibilities. They see that the one possibility of them interacting with that person, making them heal and get better. Another one, them interacting with the person and the person gets more sick. And then all the spectrum of things in between. And the shaman, who is, far beyond my practice, are able to possibly cultivate a conscious ability to determine which potentials are activated and which ones wind up occurring. Kind of intense, kind of profound. Maybe it's just me applying models of quantum physics to psychedelic nonsense. I'm open to that, but can't help but think what I think. Cacti, I have talked about extensively. Please review the beginning of it. What do you think about when people say you trip different off needlepoint, fluff, amber, LSD? Do you have different trips? My experience with all psychedelics is that each trip is really different. In terms of LSD, yeah, different batches are remarkably different. The thing is there's other lysergamides other than LSD which are present and often passed off as LSD in the culture. ALD 52, that one comes to mind. It's been a while since I've researched LSZ. There's a lot of them. So I think some things that are really different than other acid is possibly not LSD, but from my experience, when I was younger, having done quite a bit of LSD, I think that there is definitely a markedly different experience. And in terms of my understanding of chemistry, what I would attribute it to is probably chemical byproducts. So it's like other ergoloid alkaloids that are present in the final product other than LSD. Because in theory, LSD should be just LSD. Like, it should always be the same in terms of chemistry. But byproducts are going to change the way your neuron. Maybe some of those byproducts are psychoactive to some degree and are activating neural patterns. There's certainly something about like clean acid, and that's probably relative to byproducts causing vasoconstriction or not. So, and then if you want a little bit slightly mystical answer here, I've definitely never shared this online yet. I'm curious what you guys have to say about this. Think about the idea of, in mysticism, the idea that like crystals transfer energy, somebody like meditating with a quartz and things like that. Think about the idea that something is existing in a state which is not crystalline. Okay, like LSD, when somebody is synthesizing it. At the exact point where all of a sudden it starts to crystallize, okay? If crystals truly are receptive to energy, like in the way that ancient tradition as well as New Age mysticism makes it out to be, then right when those crystals form, it's possible, to me it seems like, that it would take like a snapshot of the energy. And that snapshot is the physical context of where it's at when it's synthesized, possibly reflections of like the world and galactic energies, maybe like lunar energy and stuff. I don't know. I'm basing this idea on the idea that basing this theory on the idea that if crystals are receptive to energy, then when LSD is formed, it is taking a snapshot of a lot of precise variables and elements that are going on around it. And that also includes the person that's making it. So I can't help but think that maybe the different LSD effects I've experienced were possibly relative to the people that made it. And just like ayahuasca shaman, they say that the prowess of the shaman when brewing it is going to greatly alter the experience. You're going to get more or less sickness. The strength is going to be different. I mean, if that's true, then why wouldn't the same be true for LSD? So possibly the variation of effect is related to the energy that it's taking a snapshot of. And the only other real issue with LSD and really everything in the modern culture is hearsay madness. Everybody's got different terms. Oh, needlepoint is this, that's the clean, or oh, the family fluff. It's like a lot of it's just nonsense, and a lot of it is trade terms that are relevant in one social circle and are completely different in another social circle. So I respect your question, and I think you worded it totally fine, but it's nomenclature issues. What nomenclature is each circle using? I don't know. That's my best explanation of it in an objective manner, though. The most mushies you've eaten. 5 grams is the most I've ever eaten. I've eaten 3.5 grams a lot of times. I have out-of-body experiences, visions, experiencing life and death fold into a non-dualistic coexisting thing, completely traveling out of my body and having no idea where I'm at for 5 hours. That happens to me on like 3 grams and stuff, so I don't go very high. The more I practice meditation and spiritual development, the more sensitive I become, so it becomes a lot less necessary to take strong doses. Perhaps someday I'll go back to 5 grams. Perhaps maybe someday I'll go to 7 or something, or higher. I'm open to it, but man, I get so rocked. The things that people describe to them happening on 10 hits of acid happens to me on 1. The things people talk about happening on 7 to 14 grams of mushrooms happens to me on like 3. So, it's not a contest, but I take a lot lower doses than most people, and I get very rocked from it. Psychedelics have shown me the inevitability of aliens. Can you relate? More research shows that this is a reality and that is behind our country, the world, and the grand scheme. Very interesting. My intuition when it comes to aliens is I feel more resonant with the possibility that there are other dimensional beings than other planet and technology. You know, perhaps what we see as spaceships, UFOs and things, could be relative to the psychological boundaries. We exist in such a scientific paradigm that our perception is bound to the scientific framework. So, you know, I'm not saying that there isn't a UFO, but it could possibly be existing in a very different manner than what we perceive it as, and we are just limited to seeing it as a spaceship based on cultural paradigms. I'm not saying that is the case, and even if it's really is something from a different dimension, maybe it still comes here in a spaceship. I don't know, but I think that there's something out there. You know, I've never really been much of a UFO buff or anything like that. I've always been more into like ghosts and psychic-y things when I was younger, especially. But I think that there's definitely something to the alienness. Like, there's something more out there that we're not aware of. Is it something other planetary, other dimensional? I lean towards other dimensional. I'm not really sure what I think about other planet beings, you know, possibly, but it's hard to say. If meditation is the first step to higher consciousness, what is the next step? What are the steps? I need a guide. Alchemy is the most basic answer I can do for that. I am on my YouTube channel. I'm doing a spiritual alchemy series. My next video is going to be uploaded tomorrow or the next day. The next video is going to be about balancing aspiration with acceptance, and it's serving to, help to develop a mental and emotional balance so that we can aspire for great development without beating ourselves up when we don't achieve perfection on a very simple level. But anyways, alchemy in general, alchemy is striving to achieve a given result and changing variables in order to achieve that result. My series is about spiritual alchemy. So the goal of spiritual alchemy is to develop harmony, happiness, health, basically, you know, whatever that means to you. If happiness is higher consciousness and spiritual connection, then what we're going to do is we're going to change variables in our being in order to achieve the reaction of experiencing higher consciousness. So alchemy is the answer, in my opinion. Start adjusting things, you know. Meditation, you're adding meditation into your life. So you add the meditation practice, see how that ripples, see how that changes things. Do you need more meditation? Do you need 10 times more meditation? Do you need less meditation? Just pay attention, observe your life, and then add things and subtract things. Try subtracting toxic stuff, you know, that's to me the next spiritual step. It's all about subtracting stuff that you know intuitively is not helping you and adding stuff that you feel intuitively will help you. So meditation's a great place to start, but the quest is your own, you know. I mean, for me, it's about eating as clean as I possibly can, using my brain to its fullest potential as much as I can. It's about developing as much emotional balance as I can and trying to be as honoring and spiritually disciplined as I can. And for me, the more that I do that, the more that I find myself walking a path which seems to cultivate the fullest development of my body, mind, emotion, and spirit. So. Damiana and LSD, do they work together? That's a good question. I've never combined those. I would say, yeah, it's going to be calming, you know. It's going to, Damiana is just pretty relaxing and centering. Are psychedelics necessary to have an encounter with yourself? I think you already answered that question. Sorry if I repeated. No, I mean, I think the same results can be achieved just from meditation and spiritual work. I think for some people, psychedelics might be exactly what they need. For other people, it might just be meditation is what they need. So I definitely don't think anything is limited to, oh, you have to have psychedelics. Like, if you don't find them, you're just not going to reach spiritual development. That's crazy, you know? But I also don't think it's like the opposite, where, oh, you know, the full spiritual experience is only from meditation. Psychedelics are just going to hinder it. You know, I think both of those trains of thoughts are extreme and dualistic in nature. Wow, I'm getting a little worn out. I'm going to have to end sometime soon. I wonder how many more there are. Goodness. I'll keep going. Thanks for the reply to rehab. I've had a heroin addiction for a while. It's been extremely destructive. Thanks for the blessing, brother. I can't wait to get back on my path. Before heroin addiction, I was on a very good path with meditation and psychedelics. Can't wait to get back. For now, meditation will be the focus. I am a frequent user of kava and kratom. Thoughts? I think those are great plants to help you balance out, I would be, if you have experience with heroin addiction, I would be very cautious and careful with Kratom because it acts on opiate receptors and it has a greater potential for abuse than Kava Kava, in my opinion. They're great, and if you use them responsibly and sparingly, I would think that they're not going to do any detriment. But I would be wary of Kratom because you could easily just swap out your heroin addiction for regular use of Kratom. And because of the fact that it's a plant, you can probably find a way to justify it mentally to where, oh, I'm just going to do it every day and at least I'm not doing heroin. And hey, I mean, by all means, if that's the two options, do Kratom all the time instead of heroin. Of course, you know, you're gonna wind up a lot healthier from that. But the goal, I would think, is to be free, you know? So I would make sure to be conscious of your use of all those plants and really develop a discipline of being sober and really just cultivating a sober connection to spirit. I think that's going to really, really suit you the very most. Kava Kava is amazing with its reverse tolerance. Yeah, Kava's an interesting one. I was doing it really regularly for a while, and now I kind of have gotten too sensitive. I guess that's the tolerance. My wife loves the stuff to calm her down. So I'm on Kratom. She used it to help her wean off pain pills too. Any thoughts? I was just talking about Kratom. I think it's really beneficial. That's one that we sell with Eternity in a Box. So I've heard like a lot of testimonies from customers that are just like blown away at how much it's helped them and helped them to get off of pills or use it for pain, you know, and things like that. And obviously it's helping a lot of people, you know. I think it's an awesome plant. I tried to only use it, I don't know, I don't use it very frequently. I've done it regularly before. The only problem I've noticed with it is when I do it frequently, I seem to be a little bit less intellectually fluid. I don't think it's like brain damage or anything, but it just seems like since it's sedating, it gets my brain waves on this like more chill frequency, and I'm less able to really reach like my peak philosophical thoughts. But besides that, I've never noticed anything bad from it. Talking about using echinacea, astragalus, and other non-psychoactive herbs, and they all have healing potential. Absolutely. I think there's infinite healing potential in the non-psychoactive medicinal herbs as well, and also in the realm of shamanism. You can develop a spiritual connection with those plants just as profoundly as you can to teacher plants. So every plant has a spirit, and with a harmonious connection being formed, every plant has a whole lot to offer. What do I think about the Illuminati? I'm not really sure. I think that's one of those nomenclature issues. Like, does that mean, you know, cultural controllers or something? It definitely seems like there's a certain system in place that is keeping a power struggle, keeping conflict going on the earth. That exists. Is it a group of rich people? Probably. You know, I don't know. I haven't researched it enough to say who the rich people are. You know, I've heard names thrown around and stuff, but greed is a powerful thing. People that are super rich probably want to stay super rich and contribute to more struggle and stratification. So, yeah, it's probably a thing. It could be even anything in the realm of magic. The idea of a lot of the Illuminati stuff kind of makes me think of like magic and ritual and stuff. You know, it could be actual kind of like dark energy work going on. I don't know. Hard to say. Good question, though. Aliens archetypes. You should check out why so many people see the same thing when taking DMT as example. Yeah, I mean, we're definitely experiencing archetypes and examining the collective consciousness when using psychedelics, so there's definitely something to that. I have a copious amount of LSD. It's made by someone close to me. Oh my goodness. Going through a troubling time, at which point it was made. Lisa say, I feel very strong energy in the room that seems to reflect from it even before consumption. Very interesting. It's fake. It's time to adjust it. Well, that's interesting. I'm glad that you can relate to that. I would be weary about being too near copious amounts of any psychedelic due to the legality. But I would like to learn whatever I can from you in that experience as you work with it, since you actually knew the person that synthesized it, because I've never met anyone that synthesized it or been in the loop enough to be told. If I have met somebody who synthesized it, I wouldn't know. So please do share any experience you have with that so that I can develop a better understanding. DMT entities, are they real or figments of the imagination? Awesome question, Polly. I think that brings up another question of what exactly is the imagination, what exactly is reality, and is there really anything objective? We are all limited to our subjective experience. We do not see the world around us. When I look around me at the room, I don't see the room. I see my perception of the room. So if I was to take a psychedelic and see something, is it that something is not there because I don't see it without the psychedelic, or is the psychedelic allowing me to see some aspect of data and information that is present around me that I'm normally not receptive to? It's basically a fact, from my understanding, that there's a lot of data. There's a whole lot of data around us, information, and only a fraction of it gets processed into the perception of what we see in the world. So, you know, you're walking outside and you see the trees and the sky and all these things. You might only be seeing a small percentage of what's there, what's really there. So if you get, like, let's say that you're saying 1/100th, just to throw a number out there. You know, I walk outside and I'm sober and I'm looking at the sky and the clouds and everything, and I'm saying 1% of it. So then let's say I take a psychedelic and then I look and I see some entity up in the clouds or something, right? And then let's say there's somebody else there and they take the DMT and they or let's say they don't see the entity in the clouds. Does that mean that the entity in the clouds was not there and that I was just simply hallucinating? Maybe. Or is it possible that maybe my 1% of data got moved up to a 5% of data, so I was seeing 5 times more of reality than I normally do, and the person next to me also went from a 1% to a 5%, but they did not collect the data that represented that entity being there? It's hard to say. And then we can also talk about there being different dimensions, and when you use psychedelics or enter shamanistic meditative trance without psychedelics, you are entering into different dimensional frequencies. So it's possible that those things exist in a very physical sense, but we do not always end up in the exact plane of existence or dimensional frequency where they do exist. So really good question. I'm more of a question person than an answer person, so I'm not going to try to say that it does exist absolutely, but those are my thoughts on it. If we dive into the idea of auras and consciousness, from my perspective, every being carries a certain vibration that they're constantly putting off depending on their state of mind. Can this alter our state of mind even if we're aware? Can this alter our state of mind even if we're aware of it? I'm wondering if you're asking me if we're not aware of our aura and the vibration that we're putting off, if it affects us. I definitely believe in auras. I see them, and cat's out of the bag, I guess now. You know, half the people are going to think I'm crazy, but whatever. Through developing meditation and stuff, at a certain point, I started becoming sensitive to lights, what looked like lights coming off of people and off trees and things. And through years of meditation and practice, I've developed a pretty precise ability to interpret and see different energy frequencies and things, and they correlate to things that other people I know that see auras see. So I would like to say it's like a real thing I'm saying and not a hallucination. They seem very consistent in terms of their ability to dictate and show emotions and mental patterns and things, but you know, I'm open to the possibility that I'm wrong too, and it's just a figment of my perception. So hard to say, but I do think that we are all putting off lots of vibrations, and I think that we are all receptive to different parts of it at different times, just like how animals, you know, can like sense fear and different things like that. We're putting off something that is able to be digested. We are not always digesting everything around us, but depending on how receptive we are, we may be able to be receptive to more of it at certain times than we are to others. What other smokable herbs would you recommend? Thank you for the lovely replies and enjoy the rest of your day. I like Waltheria a lot, the lotuses and the lilies, mugwort and wormwood, daca petals, really all the ones in the Eternity store. Those are all legal to smoke, all the ones in the smoking herb section. They're all pretty cool. I've experimented with all of them thoroughly. Damiana and Waltheria burn really smooth. They're both really meditative and relaxing. Dagas, I love daga, but they're a little bit harsh. Lilies and lotuses, I really love how meditative they are, but they're a little bit harsh too. Kana is an interesting one. Kana is really uplifting, raises the energy levels big time, changes your mindset really strong, but you got to get the dosage just right with Kana. You do too much of it, and I feel like exhausted, and I feel like sweaty and stuff. It's like way too strong, so... Could you explain extra dimensions in a way that seems, I don't know, logical? I was introduced to the idea during a really hard acid trip, and frankly, it scared the shit out of me. I don't want to offend, but who is explaining it, but it scared me because I felt like I was losing touch with reality, and it caused me to be isolated and eventually have a bad trip. Good question, Eric. Okay, so what I think about dimensions is this. If there are other dimensions, like if there's 10, like if string theory is right and there's 10 dimensions, or if some other theory is right and there's 20 or whatever, however many there are, if there's 1 or if there's 100, I think we occupy space in all of them. Our body exists in all of them. It's just like if you took like this coffee cup, existing three-dimensionally, and this coffee cup had awareness, and then it went down to two-dimensional awareness, it would see itself as a flat outline or, a circle from overhead or whatever, right? But it exists in 3 dimensions. So if this coffee cup existed in 2 dimensions, it would see itself as flat, but then it brings its awareness to 3 dimensions. It's like, oh my goodness, I'm a 3-dimensional coffee cup, right? So I think we're the same way, right? This comes from my experience of meditation and also just physics, understanding of dimensions. We can experience different dimensional awareness, but however many dimensions there are, they're all coexisting. So what scared you is likely that you were developing a level of dimensional awareness which was more than you were really ready to chew at that time. Or possibly also, I'm always open in my own experience to balancing out that, it could have just been imagination and things. So, it could have just been that you were wandering into some really strange, obscure aspects of the imagination that were just uncomfortable. But if what you were experiencing was truly a higher dimensional awareness and it made you uncomfortable, it's likely that, think of it like a tree or something, The tree has to develop its roots in order to grow upward. Our alchemical development is the same way, in my opinion. We have to root in if we're going to reach up. If you put all your energy up and no roots, fall over at a certain point. So dimensional awareness is like that, I think. We need to stay grounded and we need to connect ourselves. We need to root ourselves into a strong, grounded spiritual life in order to be able to pursue these higher reaches of consciousness without becoming overwhelmed. So, Eric, what you may have experienced, in my opinion, would be you may have experienced a really high awareness. You may have developed an awareness of a higher dimension, which is way beyond what you normally experience. I don't know, 3rd dimension, 5th dimension, 12th dimension, I don't know, But you may have gone up the ladder, but not had the adequate root system to have really felt secure. Because when you're real secure, in my experience, you can climb up that ladder and get to those higher levels of awareness and still feel that connection with the divine and still feel that level of safety. But if all of a sudden you find yourself just in some other world that you've never been before, yeah, it'll scare you, So just, I don't know, follow your heart and see if it's necessary to go back to that or maybe just work on meditations and things and see if it's ever revealed to you. Maybe do some meditation and reflect on that experience and see if you're able to tap into it without the psychoactives, because that might allow you to get a little glimpse of it without being so overwhelmed, because you're able to keep your roots in better. How many eyes do you have? 2 to 3, I would say. It's hard to say. What is your view about life? And what the hell are we doing here? That's a good question, man. That one is Tom. Life is this experience of existing in a physical form. What are we doing here? I think that would have 2 schools of thought. We can say it's like this science paradigm. It's all random and DNA just evolved into these things, and here we are, and it's random, and it doesn't matter, and there's a million Earths out there and all that. I don't know. I mean, certain aspects of that, maybe there's a billion planets out there, I don't know. But to me, everything is very precise and very organized, and I think everything is happening for a very profound reason, you know? I definitely believe in some organizational structure and some reason and function to this existence. So what are we doing here? We're doing one of two things. We're either striving to fulfill a purpose, whatever that is, or we're just laying there and letting life wash over us. I'm not going to say that either is inherently right or wrong, but myself, the more that I tune in and the more that I try my best to fulfill a purpose, not a purpose that I want, but I meditate and pray and ask, ask Sacred Spirit, ask the Divine, God, what I would consider it to be. What can I do to help? What can I do to make this world a better place, And I slowly, over time, get messages and get information. And the more that I work to refine myself alchemically, refining out crap out of my mind, crap out of my emotions, bad stuff out of my diet, and the more that I really develop aptitude and confidence in reaching out to the world, the more I find myself in places like this, where I am reaching out and sharing to the best of my ability this information. And all this information, I have this stuff in my head, but I cannot just on a random day just necessarily pull out a lot of information. Who can? You can't just recall every memory in your head at once, It's relative to spirit, what potentials manifest in any given moment. So in my experience, the more that we cultivate a connection to spirit, the more that we find potentials manifesting in a very precise way. So before I did this video, I prayed and I asked that I would be able to help people and provide some amount of guidance and knowledge, and also that I would be able to learn from this in some way. And through doing that, I find my neurons arranging in a way which is pretty interesting and seems to be able to encompass the questions you guys are asking. So what are we doing here? We're existing, and our neurons are firing around, and whatever we're doing, if we're doing it with purpose and we're trying to be all that we can be, what we're doing is allowing potential to flow through us and cause profound changes in the external reality. Have you read William Picard's Rose of Paracelsus? Thoughts? I have not. How do you feel about the justice system's treatment of hallucinogen users? I think it's totally messed up. I try to stay very detached from politics just because there's not enough time in the day for me to completely engage myself with that. I'm not to be confused with the dropout hippie, which is doesn't matter, it's all just love and this and this. I'm anarchist at heart. I want to cause change in the system and I would like to make things better. So, but I don't have enough time to just fill my head with all the crazy politics. And it's depressing in a lot of ways. So I allow myself to integrate societal stuff, but I also try to keep my mind mainly focused on the divine and spiritual development so that I'm able to bring information like this to the table and also keep my emotions high and, keep myself floating and flowing, so that I'm able to really enjoy life and develop and pursue the things that I think are good. But I think throwing anybody in jail over the use of psychedelics is absolutely insane, and it's extremely unfortunate. I think that we should all have the development or have the ability to experiment as we see fit with these things. There's a quote from Terence McKenna that I had written on my high school notebook, which was pretty funny for the teachers to see it, and it said, "If the words life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness do not include the right for one to experiment on one's own consciousness, then the Declaration of Independence is not worth the hemp that it was written on." That's pretty close to word for word. And yeah, I totally agree with that. Thank you for the love, Joseph. Carl, I do not speak Spanish, and it won't let me translate on here right now. I apologize. Have you ever experimented with MDA? Oh, I'm finally to the bottom. Awesome. I'm going to end it somewhat soon. I'm getting tired. MDA, no, I don't think so. I tried one capsule of or a pill or whatever when I was in high school of whatever the hell was in it, and I don't know if it might have been MDA. I'm not sure, but I don't like any amphetamines. Just from a pharmacological perspective, I am too reserved about the use of my serotonin. I'm really pretty conservative. I don't want to risk any brain damage, and any methyl or any methamphetamine molecules, MD, MDA, MDMA, MDAA, MDE, all those. From my understanding of pharmacology, those are definitely detrimental to serotonin firing. So I'm sure that you could get some kind of good experience out of those if used the right way. But I would also think that other phenethylamines, which is the class of compounds that amphetamine, which was originally derived from, I think other phenethylamines might be more harmonious with the brain chemistry and not cause detriment. And that's where I think mescaline is the grandfather compound from which amphetamine was originally derived. And I think that mescaline has the same qualities that the amphetamine class offers without the disharmony. So, yeah, that's my perspective. I'm kind of a Puritan, though, so it's alright if people don't relate to that. I am not sure how true this is, but from what I have been told, DMT in crystal form is the purest form, which I've never had, and that a darker goo-like substance was less pure. Now, out of the 3 times I've had Deemsters, 2 of the times I got a gold-like goo and a pink-white crystal powder-like substance, and they were a rather mild journey. Now that I've had some actual black goo, and the time I smoked that, it took me to another dimension within 10 to 15 seconds of the exhale, taking me through a portal, complete change of scenery in every aspect, witnessing, encountering some sort of entity covered in light. I just want to get your thoughts on my situation. Really confused from blasting off something that I was told was more pure batch as I found. Okay, so what's confusing there, Brandon, is that what is confusing there is the word purity and its implications. When somebody is saying it's less pure, because a crystal would be the most pure because it's refined all the fats out of the plant, so there's nothing else other than that compound at that point, the DMT compound. However, an impurity does not have to be something bad. It's not necessarily something that's less ideal. So depending on the preparation process, I'm actually not versed in the alchemy. I've never done extracts or anything, just a nerd for knowledge. But from what I understand, if certain plant fats and certain tannins are there, what you're going to wind up with is more of like the plant essence there, basically. So it's less pure DMT, but you're going to have more of the plant essence. So depending on different techniques and different plants people use, you might wind up with some material that has more of the fats and more of the goo matter. That's what's causing it to be a goo, is it's more fats and it's less pure, technically. You might have a stronger experience. From my experience with DMT, the ones that had more color to them, because I know white and crystal clear is more pure DMT, where the colors come from the tannins and the pigments in the plants. I've actually had experiences that I preferred with the ones that were darker in color, just because the plant essence was there and it caused more of like this physical vibration to it, where the more crystal clear ones brought about this very like I don't know, like third eye or whatever you want to call it, like opening, like it just connected me. They're both beautiful in their own way, but yeah, I think that I wouldn't take it as cut and dry, just saying that the darker color is less ideal. The darker color and the more goo is less pure, chemically speaking. But as long as they're preparing it properly, it should still be pure of any chemical residues and things like that, so you might have just as clean of a product, but it is less pure, chemically speaking. And if that is the case, then you may very well just resonate more with something that has more plant matter, because I'm the same way. Got a link here to some alchemy. I'll definitely check that out. What do you use your serotonin on? Michael is saying. I use it on a daily basis for producing thoughts and emotions, as well as the psychedelic experiences that I have sometimes. So, yeah, neurochemistry is a very sacred thing, and I really cherish the functioning of my brain. I like to feel good, and I like to be able to experience the range of emotions and the range of thoughts that we can have on a daily basis, whether sober or with plant teachers. So I am very selective. That's why I was mentioning MDMA and things like that. I don't allow anything like that in my body because I really want my serotonin and all my neuroreceptors to function at their prime potential. So, this has probably been really long. I'm pretty tired. I went into this, I was like, oh, gung-ho, and now I'm pretty worn out. So, I'll probably get some rest here. I'm glad that I was helpful to you all. Thank you guys for the appreciation here. Much love, my friends. Any other questions or anything, hit me up. Also, my YouTube channel is Zach of Eternity. I've got spiritual alchemy videos there, raw vegan food stuff. Basically the whole range, attempting to be the whole range of physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health and balance. That's the goal with my channel. So spiritual alchemy stuff to develop spirit, to develop mind, emotion, health stuff to develop the body. You know, I'm going to post this on there. So there's other plant ramblings. If you have any short advice to your audience, what would it be? Respect life, take this situation that we find ourselves in seriously, and use it to excel, you know, whatever that means to you. I don't know what the perfect thing to do is, but life is amazing, and it's so wild and profound that we find ourselves here existing in these body with these mental dispositions and these cultural dispositions and all this stuff. Let's make it awesome. Let's make it shine. You know, a lot of people say that love is the answer. Reality is just love. And there might be something to that. Let's share love and harmony with each other, and let's help each other, and let's try to make the world a better place. Everybody likes to smile. Everybody likes to experience positive emotions and to feel love. If I make you guys happy, you can all go make 100 people happy, and 100 people make me happy, all that. If I anger somebody, they anger somebody, and the ripples just go down and everybody gets brought down a notch. There's something really functional and practical about love and harmony. So my advice is, let's pursue it. Let's pursue harmony. Let's pursue love, and together let's try to make the world a better place. You know, I'm really passionate about helping this earth. I don't want the earth to be sick. I love my earth. I love all my fellows, and yeah, the only other main advice that comes to my mind is remember your own fallibility. Nobody knows anything for sure. Everything is in a state of evolution, and questions are extremely important to... it's important to remember that there's no definitive answer to anything, in my opinion. The illusion of an answer causes a stagnancy of development. So anything that you come to an awareness of, an answer, digest that answer, but then reappraise the question and allow things to keep evolving and growing. That's really been something that I've kept as a fundamental in my mind over the past decade of, you know, intellectual growth, probably from, 18 till I'm 28 now. And I think that's really helped to keep me balanced and humble, because I don't know anything for sure, and I don't know any definitive answers, but I've got ideas, and I can throw ideas out there, and I can respect everybody else's thoughts as ideas too. I don't think there's any gurus that have the exact answer, but at the same time, we're all teachers, and we're all profound. We all have something unique to share, so. Said keep going live. It's more connecting. Yeah, I would like to do these like about once a week or something. So any other ideas you guys have, you can write them down or whatever, and you can always contact me. But really cool ones, I would encourage to maybe we'll coordinate, and you can do it on the next live one, because I think it's a lot more engaging, and it's also fulfilling for me. I feel like I'm like flowing and using my brain and stuff. Please comment your YouTube so I can find it tomorrow. Thank you for all the love, guys, and I will put it, it's Zach of Eternity, but I'll go ahead and put a link to the channel on there, and yeah, it's been fun, my friends.